everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love and we think you should read. When, Brad?
Right now, 2 books in 2022. That's a lot of twos. Happy New Year.
It is almost like too much, but
Wow, I can't compete with that.
And yet not enough. I can't wait to hear what you've been reading recently, my friend. Why don't you lay it on us?
Yeah, I'm super excited to share. So, coming out a break here, I got through the Dune trilogy. I think there's like 9 books or more. Anyway, I got through the first 3, and that was a lot of reading love and a lot of pages. So transitioning, it's similar to when I finish a Netflix show. I have a little bit of mourning, and it's hard to get to the new show. It's like I'd rather almost reread what I just read because I enjoyed it so much than start something new. That's like TMI, but that's kind of how I operate. So anyway, when I pick up this book I'm about to tell you about, the expectations are high because I'm already kind of in mourning for what I'm leaving. So it takes a lot to sell me or get me excited or able to let go. And actually, so this is Dear Student by Elly Swartz, and it comes out in February, so very soon. And this is the book I picked up, and I started, the first couple pages. Like I said, I was just leaving this immense Dune world and was still thinking about all of that. And so it took me like a page to get into this. And then very quickly I realized, oh my gosh, this is something special. This is special. And I got to think of the right word. I know for sure authentic is one. It is so real. And what it feels to me, whether I'm thinking about my own kids or kids that I get to work with here at school, there are things we see about their character, their identities, their social interactions, how they're just trying to figure out who they are and make friends and sometimes change the world, but also just kind of survive. But then there are things that they don't let us in on, or they don't let everyone in on, or just certain layers. And Elly somehow captured so much of that so authentically and just built it so almost, this is like a crime to say, it felt effortless as a reader. Like it just felt so authentic, but yet I'm sure she worked really hard to have that happen. So Autumn, I'm gushing, I got to get to the point here. Autumn is the main character. Her mom works at a vet clinic. Her dad left in a sense where he didn't leave. He went to serve in the Peace Corps, but yet he's not there. And Autumn doesn't feel so good about that. But Autumn is meeting these different friends at school. Logan is a girl. I think I'm getting this right. Cooper is a boy. And it's fascinating how I can just see this playing out with my own kids and kids here. It's interesting when your friends kind of compete for you, or maybe they don't approve of your other friends, or you're trying to impress one and not disappoint the other. Like all these things were happening that were so real. And I'm not even quite done with it yet, but I'm like, do I talk about this? I'm like, how can I not talk about this? It is so ridiculously authentic and charming. And I could just see kids kind of probably like I am and like what's happening to me, falling in love with this book and the story and just feeling so connected to it. So for all of those reasons, probably a zillion other ones that I didn't mention because I got too busy gushing, I really recommend Dear Student. Market, I think February 15th or so is the ETA on this one. Yeah, February 15th. So it's coming right around the pike. Literally write this one down. I think this is going to be a fan favorite.
Well, Brad, for the second time in Read This Now history, guess what I'm about to do?
You should have warned me. I feel I should have just let you down first, Jen, and just said ditto, what Jen said. No, I can't wait to hear what you're going to say.
I'm so excited that we both, again, for our 3.5 viewers, we never plan this. And so it's always a surprise to me what Brad reads and vice versa. And so I'm just delighted now that twice this has happened. It's taken us over 3 years to duplicate books, but now this is the second time. And I'm so tickled because this was one of those books as I was reading it, is like, I need someone else to read this because I want to talk to somebody about it, So I'm so tickled that now you get to be that person.
as soon as you said you're going to talk about it, like just now internally, I'm like, yes, 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 I want to talk. I want to hear
exactly. It almost makes me feel like we should plan this more often to like have duplicate books, because selfishly this is so fun. But
yeah, I love it.
I kept like honing in on what you were talking about in terms of the book feeling authentic. I am doing this from memory, so I may get this wrong and I apologize, but I want to say that Elly Swartz has a background in psychology. And
Okay,
I
great.
felt like as I was reading this, like that just shone through, because I was, as someone who has taught these sort of middle grade readers for almost 20 years, you know, I spent almost 20 years of my career in middle school. Just like you, I was like, oh my gosh, she has this exactly right. Like I could hear my students talking in this way. I've seen these kind of you know, relationships play out in this way, where it's like not a super easy start and like meld into this beautiful friendship. Rather, there's stumbling blocks along the way as these kids are figuring out who they are and who they want the world to see them as, etc. And I just loved Autumn, and I loved her relationship with her little sister Pickle, and how sweet and charming their family was, despite the fact that they were kind of fractured and going through some tough transitions. As you mentioned, the dad has moved away for a time to join the Peace Corps and follow what he sees as a higher calling. But for Autumn, that feels very cowardly, and she can only focus on the hurt she feels for her dad not being there, rather than seeing what her dad sees, which is this higher mission. I kept thinking about how kids whose parents are in the military and are deployed could relate to this story, even though it's a different situation. The circumstances are so similar. But one thing I really wanted to mention, which I found to be so expertly crafted, is as Elly is moving into middle school, and this book takes place at the very beginning of middle school, for not for Elly, sorry, for Autumn. I'm getting the author and the main character mixed up. But as Autumn moves into middle school, she is, and I could relate to this so much, Brad, she is incredibly shy. She's very worried about, has a lot of anxiety about talking in front of people, or even talking in small groups to people she doesn't know. She describes the words as getting stuck in her throat. She knows what she wants to say, but she just can't seem to get them out. The one place that she's able to do that is in writing. And so her school newspaper, The Express, has this really interesting feature where every year the like teacher support person for the Express, the teacher who runs that club for kids, picks an anonymous student. No one else in the whole student body knows about it. That person to be this advice columnist who goes under the moniker Dear Student, hence the title, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not giving anything away when I say that early on in the book, Autumn decides to very bravely apply for that position. And when she's picked, she's so excited because it gives her an opportunity to have a voice without really having to use hers in the way that makes her uncomfortable. And while that feels like such a triumph in the beginning, some things start to happen as Autumn makes friends, and those friends seek advice from Dear Student, and that advice that she supplies becomes complicated, and it really forces Autumn to focus on her own voice rather than the voice of the Dear Student advice columnist. And I just thought that was such a masterful way to illustrate how kids of all ages, but particularly those middle grade readers who are trying to figure out who they are, a masterful way to illustrate those conflicts and how tough that is to have confidence in your own voice. So I just love this book.
Jenn, when you talked about the Dear Student advice column, and I think you used the word masterful, I couldn't agree more. The way that Elly Swartz sets up the book with Autumn's kind of personal just challenges in having confidence to talk to people, but then even after she does muster up confidence and says something, she questions herself. Imagine how that plays out, even as an anonymous advice giver. She might be empowered to share advice, But then as she's hearing from people who don't know that it's her giving the advice and
Yes.
getting feedback that's maybe creating other issues or having her question like, oh my gosh, I said that and maybe it caused that. And it's so artfully done. One of the things I like best about the book is how authentic. I don't even know if Elly mentions the word anxiety in the book at all. She might, but it's not like this label like Autumn has anxiety.
Right.
It's so authentic, and I see it like in kids here. I see it in my family.
Yes.
It's like, what does that look like? What does that sound like? How does that feel? Just the questioning and the lack of confidence at certain things. She captures that so well to the point where you are sitting there. I was sitting there cheering for
Yeah.
Autumn and wanting her to be confident and
I know.
not worry about what her other friends said and like, just do it, Autumn. You got this, kiddo.
But then also, Brad, I found myself like, this is the part that I don't know touched me so deeply, is that maybe because I could relate to this as a middle school student myself, Autumn feels so much admiration for other kids in school because she sees them as being brave, as being able to talk to anyone, as having all this confidence, etc. And as she starts to navigate this world where she's got like the advice column persona that she's dealing with, and then Autumn herself, she starts to see that these people that she reveres as being having it all together and being super confident and able to talk to anyone, that they share some of her same fears. One of the things I love about this book is that her two friends, those characters, are so well developed, both Cooper and Logan, that you like feel for them too as they make mistakes, as they hurt other people, as they hurt themselves. You are still rooting for them because that anxiety, even though it might not be named, that is a common thread that all the characters are dealing with in some way. I just loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, superior. So I can't think of the perfect word, Jen, but like when I said effortless, I kind of meant it like it's so simply elegant and but yet complex and meaningful. It's like, how did she do that? How did she make that also visceral and clear and authentic without like just labeling it? She just takes us on this journey, and it's just like it's incredible.
Magical.
I sense like you and I are going to have to talk more about this offline because I have so much more I want to say and ask. But I have to say a teeny tiny thing. I love how even the names of some of her best friends, I think that I'm guessing there was some intentionality behind selecting them so that it wasn't just labeling as a reader. I didn't just say, oh, that's the friend she has that's a boy. Oh, that's a friend girl.
Yes.
There weren't necessarily cliche names. It had me have to think and discern a little bit more, which helped me go deeper with my connecting and analyzing. That's hard. I didn't say that very well, but I just love everything seems so purposeful, but yet effortless.
I think you hit on a good point. Two things there. One is that those characters were really, their identity was wrapped up more in their personality traits than things like their name or something superficial. Yes. And that does take you a little longer to get to know them, I think, because you can't just quickly classify them as this or that, which I think that is very artfully done. But the other thing I wanted to amplify about what you said is that there's some complex issues in this book. The characters, there's a conflict that the characters are dealing with that gets messy and that they try to figure out. And certainly the adults are dealing with their own conflicts that are messy, etc. But what is so artfully done in Dear Student is that not only are they approached in a way that is appropriate for a middle grade reader, but they're done in a way that middle grade readers will get and understand. You know, like you were talking about how effortless it feels for her to weave in all of this stuff, but I want to emphasize that the target audience for this book is going to feel that way, not just to adults, right? But the target audience. I just could see fourth, fifth, sixth graders, seventh graders just falling in love with these characters in this book.
Agree.
And loving it.
You always bring out the best in my thinking. So when you just said what you said, it made me think, Elly, she wrote this in a way that I think a middle schooler isn't going to feel like, oh, Elly was trying too hard to write this for me or to pretend like she's in my world. I think it's so authentic. I think kids are just going to be like, this is so real. I love it. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes there's books written for this age group, and I think this age group's a hard group to write for, because they're in such a transition, and what they're dealing with developmentally might not always be easy to write in a way that as readers they're ready to understand, you know. So I think it's a hard audience to write for, and so with that being said, I think that sometimes there are books that are written for this age group that it feels like the target audience is a 4th to 5th grader, but they're almost written for the librarians and the teachers who might be supporting supporting those readers. Like they're the kinds of books that the protagonists are of that age, the conflicts are right for that age group, but the writing might be a little hard for some of those readers to access. And this book is one of those magical combinations where Elly gets it all right, like where I think kids will want to talk to adults about what's in this book, but I think they'll be able to understand and digest it and have a really meaningful experience with it, without having it be a read aloud, without having it, some adult there to help them unpack it. Not that that wouldn't be a wonderful experience, but I don't think it's a necessary experience, whereas for some middle grade books, I think that is. So
yeah, we don't get to do this often because I think should we do 2 Dear Students Up for Dear Student?
Yes, for sure. We should hold it up like this so we both are, sharing it. It's such a great book, and I loved it. I'm so glad.
Awesome.
Yay! Well, I'm so excited that this was our second ever double whammy twin book talk day. And if our 3.5 viewers, who knows, maybe we're up to 4.5 in 2022, right? If they would like to check out all of our book recommendations, including our one other duplicate book talk day, where can they go to check that out, Brad?
They should definitely go to bit.ly/read_this_now. It's a pretty spectacular resource.
If we do say so ourselves. See you next week, my friend. Until then, happy
Thanks,
reading.
Jenn.